Good evening, everyone, to this very special webinar from the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia, based in New Delhi. This is a very special webinar, number 20, and we have given it the title Landmines to Grapevines. It is being aired live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Bharat FM Radio, Chicago, and on PIO TV to give us a very, very large global audience of media and people interested in the subjects we talk about. I will invite shortly our president, Mr. S. Venkat Narayan, to introduce the special guest. But in the meantime, let me introduce my colleagues here who are here on the panel with us. Is Dr. Wail Awad. He's a very senior journalist, and he's also been the former president of the FCC South Asia. We have with us Ms. Sushma Rao, who's the India representative of our special guest. My colleague Vichitra Sharma, a very senior journalist from New Delhi, covers foreign affairs. And also Ms. Simran Sodhi, she's a columnist for the Khalij Times. And of course, Mr. Manish Chand, editor-in-chief, India Rights Network. My name is Munish Gupta. I am the secretary of the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia. And I now hand it over to Mr. S. Venkat Narayan to introduce our two featured speakers. Venkat, please.
A warm welcome. We are delighted to have with us Heidi Kuhn. She's joining us from California. We also are delighted to have the Afghan ambassador to India, Tahir Qadri. A warm welcome to both of you. Friends, both of them happen to be former journalists, and that would be a matter of interest to journalists who are watching this all over the world. Heidi was inspired by the late Princess Diana's work to eliminate landmines from war-torn areas. And she founded Roots of Peace 20 years ago. She's a graduate of the University of California in Berkeley. And she has been a reporter for CNN and also a producer. For the last 20 years, she has been running this Roots of Peace. She's traveled widely all over the world. And her work has benefited 1.1 million farmers and their families in 7 countries in war-torn areas. But we still have 60 million landmines in 60 countries, and that is a challenge she is going to face. And we will hear her tell us about what she is going to do in coming years to eliminate all the landmines and unexploded devices from the face of the earth in order to bring peace to us. And Tahir is an old friend of the FCC. We hosted him some time ago. He showed a beautiful documentary he made on life in Kabul, and which was widely appreciated. He has a very important assignment shortly, but he has been very gracious. He joined us. Welcome to you, Tahir Qadri. And welcome to you, Heidi Kuhn. Munish.
Thank you, Venkat. And before we get to hear from Heidi and later from Tahir, I would request our transmission person, Anil Yadav, to please play 2 very special videos. We'll set the tone for this very special webinar and meeting today. Anil, if you could play the 2 videos.
"20 years ago, in the last months of her life, my mother campaigned to draw attention to the horrific and indiscriminate impact of landmines.
Britain's Prince Harry is paying tribute to his late mother, Princess Diana, by urging people to rid the world of landmines by 2025. Prince Harry and his brother, William, were just young teens when their mother was tragically killed in a car accident in 1997. Prince Harry is now 32 and eager to carry on his mother's mission with the help of demining organizations, including the Halo Trust and MAG, the Mines Advisory Group.
My mother had been shocked and appalled by the impact that landmines were having on incredibly vulnerable people, and on children in particular. I didn't understand why more people were not willing to address the cause of so much suffering.
A mother of 4 young children in San Rafael was so profoundly moved by Diana's life that she was willing to address the suffering from landmines. Heidi Kuhn founded her charity, Roots of Peace, 20 years ago in San Rafael with her husband, Gary. Her dream: turn mines to vines, replacing landmines with grapevines or other food crops. They told me recently they were invited to Kensington Palace this year to hear the prince's call to action.
It was very emotional for him. You could really see that in his eyes and his demeanor, and it was very heartfelt.
Heidi and Gary were so inspired by Princess Diana, they traveled to the same landmine-filled province she walked in Angola. Their work with the Halo Trust saved people and animals. They applied lessons they learned through their Roots of Peace model in Afghanistan. First, remove the landmines, and then help the farmers improve their crop yields for food and for export. 14 years later, it's having a stunning effect on the economy's gross domestic product.
We've pushed up the GDP of the country. Our projects impact the GDP of 2 or 3%. At the farm level, it's people changing their lives because now they have enough money for education and health. They don't need handouts.
Roots of Peace has worked in more than half a dozen countries removing landmines and restoring farmland. They are ready for Prince Harry's challenge in his mother's memory.
I think she'd be proud of her son and what he's doing, because this was one of her top causes.
We can take the words of her son and in the next 8 years follow up on that call to action and eradicate all landmines by 2025. It would be a miracle.
Cheryl Jennings, ABC 7 News.
The Bay Area nonprofit group is helping to transform the economy of Afghanistan tonight.
ABC 7 News anchor Cheryl Jennings had the exclusive opportunity to see their work firsthand, and she is here to tell us more about that.
It's all very exciting. President Ashraf Ghani says that he wants Afghanistan to be an exporting machine and believes the San Rafael-based charity Roots of Peace is helping to provide the tools to be a game changer for his country with the help of USAID.
It's a reborn love. People are re-engaging with their country.
Afghanistan's new president, Ashraf Ghani, met recently with Roots of Peace founders Heidi and Heidi Kuhn and me to talk about moving his country's economy from aid to trade.
I want to thank Roots of Peace for their initiatives, and I'd be very encouraging of scaling up the effort.
Roots of Peace is eager to expand its work with farmers and traders so they can stand on their own. I saw their pilot project in 2005 during my first visit to Afghanistan, when Roots of Peace was removing landmines and helping starving farmers grow food for their families. Now, thanks to long-term funding from USAID, a major transformation is underway to improve the agricultural economy. The new president told me that it is crucial for the world to help Afghanistan create jobs, because jobs can be a powerful weapon to fight the drug trade and terrorism.
The image of a number of small drug runners is not the image of the majority of the people. It's the type of threats that, if congregated around our neighborhood, or threats to the entire system of government.
In spite of those threats, Afghanistan is a country on the move finally after decades of war.
Present-day Kabul at night, the 5th fastest growing city in the world. That's progress. That's success. And that could only happen with a coalition of the security that is provided.
General John Campbell leads the NATO mission in Afghanistan. He talked with me at the military base in Kabul about the important contributions by Roots of Peace.
Their dedication, their passion, their energy for the Afghan people is pretty remarkable.
Roots of Peace clearly have shown that they're dedicated to development here, and they have some very impressive results.
Bill Hammock is head of the USAID mission in Afghanistan, the largest in the world.
They've been funding our programs and supporting our efforts. They've been a huge supporter of us, which is great. It's enabled us to do many good things in this country.
Hammock and his team met with the Kuhns in Afghanistan to talk about President Ghani's goal: drive the agricultural economy faster, link more farmers and more traders to international markets.
We've seen a shift now whereby farmers are actually making money, and there's a growing number of Afghan traders that are helping out.
The Roots of Peace team producing those impressive results includes experts in science and business.
We've gone from market demand to identifying the types of product that buyers want, and then working backwards and saying, this is a product that you should be growing, and this is how you should take care of that product.
Proper irrigation is important, thinning is important, fertilizer.
Ahmad Shah trains farmers on ways to grow the best grapes and pomegranates. He says it took time to convince the farmers to try new ideas.
They were fighting with us. Why you are disturbing our wines? This is from my mother, this is from my father.
We have taken farmers to international expositions, international markets, to meet with the buyers in those markets. They needed to understand the big picture.
We've gone from what are basically wholesale markets to directly selling to supermarket chains. Those aspects they would classify as being game-changing.
Millions of dollars of deals are starting to happen thanks to that partnership with USAID. And now President Ghani has jumped in and is already promoting Afghanistan's produce.
Without the sons and daughters of farmers believing that they can be presidents, ministers, entrepreneurs, we will not have a prosperous country.
Well, thank you. That was, we thank ABC7 and of course Heidi for letting us show those clips. Incredible clips, incredible work. But before I come to you, Heidi, I definitely want to give an opportunity to our friend here in India and your representative, Sushma Rao, to please speak for a couple of minutes briefly, because we are a little bit short of time because Tahir has to leave at 7. So we want to progress very quickly. Sushma, over to you.
Hi, Heidi. Hi, all the panelists. It gives me immense pleasure as an entrepreneur, graduate of civil engineer with the environmental as my elective, a chapter head for Apex Wine Club, New Delhi, as it is the 2nd year anniversary of the same, to welcome Ms. Heidi Kuhn, the author of the book Breaking Grounds, founder and CEO of the Roots of Peace, and all the dignitaries on the panel list. My viewers and Mr. Venkat Narayan, the president of FCC, for the book launch, which is a real-life experience of Ms. Heidi to convert landmines to mines to bring prosperity and peace. In midst of the COVID pandemic, a sudden wish to do something for the earth was the main reason to collaborate with Ms. Heidi Kuhn as a volunteer of the Roots of Peace in India. I welcome all of you for a very informative and interactive session. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. Good day.
Thank you, Sushma. Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Heidi. We want to hear from you, your lovely story and how a fellow journalist has turned to bring peace and prosperity to the war-ravaged regions of the world. Please.
It's just such an honor for me, and just giving life to such a serious issue such as landmines. So Your Excellency, FCC leadership, and of course Sushma Rao, whom I met just 1 year ago today in India, with Passage to Prosperity, hosted by the USAID. It's just such a great honor to be with you. And from this very living room of my home, from where I speak in San Rafael, California, on September 21st, 1997, shortly after the tragic death of the late Princess Diana, I launched a global initiative with a vision of turning mines to vines, replacing the scourge of landmines with bountiful vineyards and orchards worldwide. We live in a world today, as you mentioned, with 60 million landmines silently poised in 60 countries. And I know, as a mother of 4 children, it takes 8 pounds to detonate a landmine, which is the average weight of a newborn child. So I set out on a quest and went to our business leaders in the Napa Valley, legendary names of the vine: Robert Mondavi, Mienko Grgic, Diane Disney Miller, Tor Kenward, and Wente, and invited them to join me to witness the Ottawa Treaty to ban landmines, which was just taking place a few weeks after the toast. And coincidentally, the landmine issue, the ICBL and Jody Williams had just won the Nobel Peace Prize. But the world didn't know about landmines. They didn't know that they often miss their intended target. And it's the innocent footsteps of children and farmers who are maimed and killed long after the guns have silenced. So in the first month of the new millennium, in January 2000, I set out on a quest to Croatia. Shortly after the Balkan War, there were 1.2 million landmines, UXOs, and cluster munitions on this beautiful area along the Dalmatian coast. And one of the vintners was born there, Mienko Grgic. He's 97 years young today, and we both fondly recall walking through his beloved homeland, only to see not the vineyards growing, but the terrible effects of landmines. So it's been so beautiful over 20 years to see with my own eyes Croatia go from one of the most heavily mined countries to one of the top tourist destinations in the world. So I firmly believe that we can see this model of demine, replant, rebuild, rippled across the world. And most importantly, after the September 11th attacks on the United States, the world learned of Afghanistan. And again, another beautiful opportunity to turn mines to vines. And instead of course, in Croatia, a fine bottle of wine, grapes are never fermented with due respect to the Muslim culture. But Afghanistan is a country that is home to 70 varietals of grapes. So I partnered with University of California, Davis, and the root stocks that they had collected through a professor named Dr. Harold Olmo in the 1940s in a living library in California. We flew back to Afghanistan because during the Civil War and the Taliban, the vineyards were not only burned, but they were mined in the Shomali Plains north of Kabul to break the spirit of the people. So with generous funding from another vintner, Diane Disney Miller, who owns Silverado Vineyards and was a volunteer in the basement of my home, just to help me, in the early days. Again, a mother of 4 small children. Just imagine thinking that you can affect change on the other side of the world. And one day she took me to lunch and she wrote me a check. And when you run a nonprofit, every single penny counts. And it was a 6-figure check for $200,000. And she told me, go turn your minds to vines in Afghanistan. You remind me of Dad. And when I looked at the check and I looked up and I said, Mrs. Miller, I said, who was your father? And she quietly and humbly stated, I'm Diane Disney Miller. My father was Walt Disney. So, you've got to believe in miracles. You got to believe in the good in life. And these are such dark times that we are all living with COVID-19. We have that sense of empathy around the world of what it must be like for mothers and families to shelter in place every single day for fear of going into their backyard and the fear of landmines. As a child kicks a soccer ball out of bounds, children chase a butterfly over a field to pick flowers for their mother, or a farmer in the field just tending to his crop. So in Afghanistan, we began with the demining of the Shomali Plains and introducing the trellis grapevines, which literally lifts the grapes off the ground, as you saw in the video, and you prune the vine, you double the yield. So despite the many challenges that Roots of Peace has incurred since nearly 2 decades in working in Afghanistan, I would like to share the positive news that is so often not reported in the news. And through generous funding from USAID, USDA, DOD, European Union, and the Asian Development Bank, Roots of Peace has proudly planted over 5 million fruit trees in all 34 provinces and impacted over 1.1 million farmers and families. Now, there have been challenges, as His Excellency knows. The news covered Roots of Peace on March 28th, 2014. And it wasn't for the good that we accomplished. It was because we were attacked by the Taliban in a 4.5-hour gun battle. And it was the longest 4.5 hours I have ever experienced in my life. And as a mother from California and wife, I thought, what am I doing? Maybe I can't affect change. But when my first grandchild was born, I looked into his eyes and I thought, to whom much has been given, much is expected. And so we carried on. And I would like to say, with the pride of funding from USAID, from my government, we have managed with our partners to help take exports of beautiful fresh fruits from Afghanistan. In 2014, had we quit, the average exports were about $250 million. And through Roots of Peace CHAMP program, which is the acronym for Commercial, Horticultural, Agricultural Marketing Program, quite a mouthful, we have taken the exports from $250 million to $1.4 billion. And that was as of the end of 2019. So we are now working with our partners. Again, COVID knows no borders. When we get a vaccine for COVID, hopefully I will be able to come out and meet you personally once again. But for landmines, there is no vaccine. There is no cure. The only cure is removal. So I will continue with all of my heart and with the great journalists on the line here today in India to help us tell the story of prosperity through peace, peace through agriculture. And I am working very hard day and night to help coordinate from afar a harvest of hope in Afghanistan. Afghanistan remains today, tragically, the most heavily mined country in the world. An estimated 10 million landmines were laid after the tragic wars. But as we remove these landmines from the beautiful earth of Afghanistan, it's also a country that's 80% dependent upon agribusiness. So as the intra-Afghan peace talks continue in Doha, the simple solution for peace is jobs, jobs, jobs for the young people. So as we remove a landmine and we plant the beautiful pomegranates in Kandahar and Helmand, the apples and apricots and almonds in Ghazni, Wardak, Logar, of course, grapes and raisins in Shomali, cherries in Badakhshan, we are exporting those fresh fruits through air cargo and through trucks, working with Pakistan. Again, not with the political organization, not with religious intentions, just respecting the fact that we are all daughters and sons of Abraham. And we are given this one earth to shepherd. And as we are good stewards of the land, the fruits of the earth will lead to prosperity. So I just want to thank you all so much for this incredible opportunity. I hope we continue to exceed those numbers. Again, a year ago today, I had the privilege of meeting Sushma just by chance. And my grandmother would always teach me something. Coincidence is a miracle in which God prefers to remain anonymous. And I think that translates in all languages. You know, just the coincidence of those moments when we take hold of them, and it could have been a conversation in a booth and we move on, exchange business cards, and that's it. But I really thank her from the bottom of my heart for being persistent, having me wake up before the sunrise in California. And a year ago today, I just want to say how proud I was to be in New Delhi and to do the ribbon cutting at the food hall at the DFL Promenade. And we are also exporting those beautiful fresh fruits like the Kabuli Wallas once did, the folklore of Afghanistan, to Big Bazaar and to Reliance. And with the demand for beautiful fresh fruit and the market for, supply and demand, this is the economics of peace, the business of peace. And I turn it over to you, Your Excellency, for really helping share and bring hope to our world that peace is possible. And together as a world, may we turn minds to vines. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was enlightening, very inspirational, and a lot of good, noble work. May I now request Mr. Tahir Quadri from the Afghan Embassy in Delhi to please give us his special remarks.
Hello and good evening to everyone. Such enlightening and inspirational speech by Heidi. Thanks to FCC, which I'm proudly an honorary member as well of the club. So thank you so much for organizing this timely webinar today. In fact, it happens at a very crucial time that the peace talks are going in Afghanistan, and we hear some great messages of love and assistance and empathy as Heidi delivered. So I think it is very important for Afghanistan as we move towards the peace talks. I think AD rightly put that what Afghanistan needs at this point is employment and creating jobs and job opportunities, but Haiti has been doing. So I would like to acknowledge Haiti's lifetime achievement of changing so many Afghans, hundreds of thousands of Afghans' lives. And I want to congratulate her on what she's doing in a country like Afghanistan. We Afghans are very much appreciative of what she has been doing, and history will remember, the name of Haiti as a great champion who changed and healed actually a nation's sorrows and created a lot of great opportunities for them. I know that I will be, attending another event. Otherwise, I would have talked long hours. But I would like to again congratulate Haiti, and I really hope to see her in person and maybe acknowledge and appreciate in person as well what she has been doing for my people, for my country. Because as we move towards the peace talks, as you said, I think this is quite important to hear such promising messages from great souls like yourself and great friends that we have here in India, because it's quite important for us that we have great souls and people and partners with us. And I would like to thank Narayanji and Guptaji and everyone else for organizing this timely thing. And I'm really sorry that it's a little bit dark, but nevertheless, I would like to conclude by congratulating everyone, including ADG. And I really can't wait to have my hands on the book that she has, which is written. And I really hope to receive my copy. And I owe you, ADG, a lunch, Afghan lunch with some fresh fruits, all the way coming from Kabul when you are next year in Delhi. And of course, everyone else, most welcome to the Afghan Embassy. Thank you so much again, and thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kadri. That was well said, well spoken. Heidi, all the congratulations to you from Afghanistan, India, and the rest of the world. With your permission now, let me get to my colleagues now, who would naturally want to ask you a few things about what you do and how you get to do these things. Very challenging. I don't know. I mean, the 4.5 battle, you when you spoke about it, gave me goosebumps. I was wondering how you survived that. Let's first get to Dr. Wael Awad. Dr. Awad, you have covered Afghanistan and you know the problem. What is it that you would like to hear from or know from Heidi, about her work and her championship?
Been doing.
Please unmute.
I think
yeah, that's okay.
I am already unmuted. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Now, thank you, Manish. Thank you, Mr. President and Heidi. We enjoyed listening to you, and I had a chance of browsing into your book online, and I have just seen the work you have been doing in Afghanistan with your projects, and I'm very happy to know that Afghanistan is not a forgotten territories anymore. I mean, the world is now focusing more because mining is one of the major issues. We covered a lot of story of the civilians who have been killed on the mines, and I think the German team was very active in those fields, and they were training the local women, and we had been doing lovely story from there. The point I wanted to raise here is 12% of Afghanistan is only cultivated land, and that makes Afghanistan very difficult and very harsh to live for the people. So I think agricultural activities has to be encouraged, and especially in your field of grapes and also in other cultivation of the lands. But then I can come back. Do you think the world has forgotten Afghanistan after the peace deal with the United States? Do you think there will be more challenges for your work in Afghanistan? And when was the last time you visited the country?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your question. And the last time I visited the country was February of this year. Actually, I brought the Afghan traders after meeting actually at the palace. I had the honor of meeting His Excellency Dr. Abdullah, as well as President Ghani. And we brought the Afghan traders on the plane with us to Dubai. And they attended the Gulf Food Exhibition, the largest food exhibition in the world. So deals were done, and people aren't going to fly necessarily into Afghanistan for security reasons, but our strategy was to fly the traders into these burgeoning new markets so that they could secure deals. So that was where that began. And I think it's so important because of the news, we open the papers and we see only the next suicide bomber, and we wait for that negativity of news. Again, as I emphasize, in Afghanistan, people are so grateful, especially the young people, men and women. We've trained over 6,000 Afghan women to grow fresh fruits and help assist with the packaging, the corrugated boxing, the exporting, the dexterity of their fingers with the drying of the fruit. So it is jobs, jobs, jobs. And we're working in very challenging areas. We've just received new funding from INL and a proud partnership with UNDP. And we're working in Farah and Baglis and Nangarhar. And again, these are very challenging provinces, but once these peace talks are signed, when the ink is dried, we need peace action. And that action is going to come from my humble perspective, from turning swords into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks. So nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Those words are etched in stone at the United Nations, at the Isaiah Wall, with respect to all cultures and countries and faiths. And I think leading with the shovel rather than the gun or the sword is going to be, from my humble perspective, one of the only ways to sincerely lift Afghanistan out of the rubble. And once the high quality of fruits are cultivated, the sad legacy of war, Afghanistan knew how to grow grapes and fruits. And as you know, the folklore of the Kabuli Wallas, they would wait for the mystical traders from Afghanistan to come and bring those fruits. Well, they're back now. And if we can keep that value chain going, the business of peace, demine, replant, rebuild, but the exports are critical. And again, we're working with, I did a webinar just a few weeks ago with Ambassador Mohammed Sadiq, who was appointed Pakistan special envoy to Afghanistan. And it's essential that we don't have the borders of Torkham and Spinbaldak blocked, that we need to get those fresh fruits on a timely basis, and then through the Wagah Pass and then into India. And when people have prosperity and jobs across borders, you're going to have fertile grounds for stability and peace in the region, which is so critically important at this time. I hope I answered.
Yeah. No, well said, Heidi. Let me move on to my next colleague, Simran. Simran, you write for the Khaleej Times, and I'm sure Afghanistan has been on your in your writings. What's your take on this, and what's your question for Heidi?
No, I'm just wondering, when we read about Afghanistan or when we write about Afghanistan, we are writing about the various players that are involved or trying to be involved in the future of Afghanistan. And that today varies from China to Iran to Pakistan, India is there. My question to you is that when you try to do these positive steps which will bring jobs and development in Afghanistan, how receptive have all these actors been? Because ultimately, every time we talk about Afghanistan and its future, we have to take into consideration how these actors or nation states will also react. So what has been your personal experience? How have these various actors responded to your actions and your endeavors?
Well, it's been extremely positive because, again, many things aren't working in Afghanistan, but the business model that we have created with funding from, again, various supporters, ADB, Asian Development Bank, GTZ, the World Bank, we've been able to create a very focused business model. And that's not only training the farmers, as when we originally arrived, growing fresh fruit and harvesting at midday, dragging the fruit to market on burlap sacks and hoping to create a meager profit for their family. Well, the sophisticated way of doing this is with cold storage, refrigeration, corrugated boxes, proper packing, labeling, and food security, of course. And more investment is needed into these cold storage refrigeration units all over Afghanistan. Warm summer harvest temperatures, when the fruit is spoiled, the demand for the markets, from the markets such as Big Bazaar and Reliance, they expect the high quality. And as you know, India is on target to be with the third largest economy in the world. And as the middle class has the money and purchasing power, we want to bring them the best possible fruits in the world. So I have had an excellent relationship with China, with Pakistan. Before we were all on lockdown and shelter in place, I began my year in Vietnam, and from Vietnam I went to China, and just again as COVID-19 was breaking out, onto Afghanistan, Delhi, and giving a speech for Rotary down in Mexico and Guatemala. So we are all sheltered at home, but I just cannot emphasize my gratitude to all of you for taking the time to listen about. I'm not being optimistic. This isn't just, peace, let's be hopeful, peace for Afghanistan. This is, if you scratch the surface, this is a story that has not been told. It has not been really broken into the news. And, with respect to your excellent publication at UAE, they have been so wonderful to us, United Arab Emirates, in welcoming the fresh fruits. We actually have trade offices there in Dubai. And we've worked also in Israel and Palestine and demined land in Husan village, which is a Palestinian village, quite highly visible part of the world, but we tend to have a blind eye to landmines, and we just want to grow more crops, get people repatriated back home. But I believe you need to start at the basic. And as we remove the landmines, the land is no longer held hostage, and the prospect for prosperity through export and trade is unlimited. It's a great business deal for the region.
Thank you. Vichitra. Unmute yourself, please. Vichitra, you have to unmute yourself.
All right, yeah. I have a very short question and then a proper question. My very short question is, there are landmines in Jaffna in Sri Lanka. You never thought of going towards that part to help them out?
That's a good point, because when the tragic tsunami hit in Sri Lanka, people knew where the landmines were before. Again, very poor rural villagers, and they know not to walk near that one palm tree. You walk to the left of it because the mines are to the right. Well, when the tsunami came in, it just washed them all away, and they became virtual landmines. So that's the effect of climate change in these countries. But it is all dependent upon budget. And, again, I know it's an audacious goal to rid the world of landmines. Prince Harry has called forth a mine-free world by 2025. But since I was at Kensington Palace on April 4th, 2017, I haven't heard many people talking about how we're going to help this young man achieve his goal. And we just turned a blind eye. I don't understand it, to landmines, but they pierce the skin of Mother Nature. And it's entirely within our realm of possibility to eradicate landmines from the face of the earth. They're expensive to remove. They're about $3 to put in the ground, cheap, indiscriminate weapons of mass destruction in slow motion, and it cost about $1,000 to take them out. And why is it so expensive? Because if you anticipated, look out your backyard, if it were mined, the question is, how many landmines would it take to prevent the cultivation of a field? And most people just say one. The answer is actually 0. It's the fear of the presence of a single landmine that prevents the cultivation of a field. So it's critically important to step by step, get them all removed. And then once removed, the planting is essential. Otherwise, people fight over land. If they can't work their land, they've lost that connection of grandfather to father to son, how to pass that legacy on. And Roots of Peace is restoring that value chain by providing modern agricultural techniques. So I'm very proud to have worked with the Chinese Consul General here in San Francisco. He's been a guest at my home. We're not a political organization. People may have political agendas. Landmines know no color. They carry no flag. And we need to remove the hatred from our souls, the mines from our ground, the hatred from our hearts, and the mines in our head, the negativity. And as we remove these mines, we must replace them with seeds of love. And a seed grown today, planted today, will grow as it has for thousands of years. And, I just love to call upon the wonderful leadership of FCC and all of the journalists. Please meet us at the borders. Let's cover the first, the trucks that are going across contentious borders to bring fresh fruits from mother to mother, to feed the children of the region, to make the land prosperous. It's a terrific business story, and one that I'm just not going to give up on. If I fail by 2025, I fail having tried boldly. But if most people here in California, the sun is just beginning to rise outside of my window. But, we have the privilege today of running the beaches and hiking the mountains and not worrying about one landmine. We're wearing masks. We're worried about COVID. But I think it's a level playing field for the whole world to perhaps pause as we come out of this terrible, terrible pandemic. I think I've mentioned to you all my son and daughter-in-law, who is Punjabi. My grandchildren are Indian. They're both medical doctors fighting on the front line of COVID-19. So, I just think it's a world where we need to lead with faith and not fear. And we need to be strong and we need to be bold. And as we suffer this great pandemic worldwide, perhaps we may reach across borders that may have been blocked before and open the transportation routes of peace so fresh fruits can get to new markets.
Well, thank you.
Manish, can I ask a follow on?
Yes.
Well, okay, quickly. It's a short one so that I can get to Manish.
The film that I saw, there were all men there. All right. So what about, there are so many widows, so many disabled family members, and women-held households, children. Is there any, the profits going to better their lives?
Yes. And I, as I say, I've trained 6,000 women. I have women gender program directors in Afghanistan and Vietnam. I work in Vietnam as well. And, many of these women are supported actually by their husbands in remote regions. As you saw the video there, women wearing the burqas. We don't judge a culture, we work within a culture. And those women, I was there in the field physically with them. They told me stories. They wake up at 6 to 8 o'clock. They go out there and they tend to the fields before it gets warm. At 8 o'clock, they come home and make a nice dinner for their family, but they feel inspired that they're contributing, and the men love it. It's much like microcredit lending that Dr. Muhammad Yunus had initiated. But, and we have other programs that, perhaps even in more strict regions of Nangarhar and Helmand, when the men don't want the women to go out, we try to, water doesn't go over a rock, it goes around a rock. So what we do is bring these baby chicks into the family unit. The women nurture and grow the chicks grow up, they lay eggs, the men bring them to market, and the women are contributing financially to the family. And again, with respect to the cultures that we're working in very tough regions. And again, as these peace talks happen, we don't want to say, give everyone a shovel and go back to work. You have to respect the cultures. And some are more strict, as you all know, than others, but we've had extremely successful programs there. And the women are just so happy to contribute and be part of the family and part of the business of peace.
Sure. No, I saw I don't know, maybe Vichitra, we'll share the video with you. But there were women in the video. So I don't know where you didn't see the women in the video. I categorically saw the women in the video.
I'm talking about the widows who've lost their husbands to the mines. Stakeholders also.
The majority of women, they've lost a generation, to war and landmines, and they are the heads of the family. Stories in Vietnam, there's still Agent Orange, mothers giving birth to children who are hugely deformed by the legacy of war. But we've made them proud farmers. They're able to get babysitters, get out of the house, make money, come back and have, soulful work. Edifying them as even better caretakers and mothers, but having a life of their own. So it's quite complex there, and for various reasons, there are so many single mother families. They're not that the women are dependent, and they want more jobs, and they're just in line for Roots of Peace to expand our model. So we are keeping up with it as much as we can, and as soon as the ban is lifted for travel, I'm going to be on that next plane back to Afghanistan and hopefully to India to again oversee, as I was able to do a year ago, just the celebration of these fresh fruit harvested by men and women to new markets. So with funding, I hope to demine your country of Sri Lanka and plant the beautiful agricultural prosperity it deserves.
Thank you. Manish, you have to unmute yourself. Manish, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Sorry. Heidi, thanks for that very inspirational talk. I mean, the work you're doing is indeed very commendable. Since we're talking so much about Afghanistan, I basically want to ask you that, with Afghanistan right now caught in the middle of these peace negotiations, intra-Afghan talks, and the only uncertainty, as they say, is uncertainty. My question is that with the real possibility of a Taliban-led regime coming to power in Kabul, what will be the implications of such a regime, say, for the status of women, which impact also, your fight against landmines. Also wish to just highlight that India is one of the biggest development partners in Afghanistan, and all this talk we're doing about transforming mines into wines and essentially what it means is economic opportunity. How will all this be impacted? And are you in contact with the Indian leadership? What kind of help support you got from India or Indians? Thank you.
Well, thank you for those questions. And, as a woman CEO, I have signed the paycheck for 250 employees. Many of them are men, and I think they have seen for nearly 20 years the leadership of women by example. And as the Taliban potentially comes back in once the peace talks are successfully completed, inshallah, the Taliban will need to feed their children too. They don't want their children stepping on landmines, and they're going to need to earn a living. So we are definitely prepared for that, and we have been embedded, so to speak, in those areas through agriculture. We have earned the respect of the mullahs in the region, and we're a nonprofit, so the money is not going, for profit. Usually 80% goes for profit, 20% goes into country. We flip it around, and they know that. The various tribal elders know that, and they know how hard Roots of Peace works. We're primarily Afghan-led, and many of the employees who've worked for Roots of Peace have worked for me for 15 years. And you know, I've seen them grow from young boys to graduates of London School of Economics, who are out there, and this next generation who really wants a better tomorrow for their country. We are working with them closely. Again, the silver lining, if there is one, for COVID-19, I have been able to conduct many Zoom calls, and these emerging new think tanks that are led by people in their 30s and 40s who now have educations and are able to use their education to help create a better tomorrow. The C4A think tank, and this CAPS, the Center for Afghan Policy Studies, two incredible organizations. And even as the Afghans, for security reasons, move away from their beloved country, nobody wants to be a refugee, but war often creates those circumstances. They are using the tools of social media to create a brain trust, so to speak, to bring those best practices and the connections that they still have within Afghanistan. So I just hope that my footsteps have led by example as a woman, and the importance to communicate to the Taliban and to all people living in Afghanistan that we need to feed our children, we need to make the land safe for them to play, and we need to invest in peace like never before. And it's to everyone's advantage. To roll it back into dark ages is not going to be benefit really to anyone. So I think we are all witnessing a bold new world, and I hope that we can learn best practices. Can't guarantee it, but you know, I think it's a very difficult pill to swallow, and that is one of forgiveness. We have suffered an attack, and I just again need to lead with optimism and hope. We can't let the Afghan people down right now. And the best way I know of helping very poor rural farmers is to train them to grow high value crops for export. And how can the Indian people help me? You already have. I was so honored October 2nd last year to be the first American to ever receive the Gandhi Award, Seva Award from the Gandhi Global Family. So I was at your beautiful Rajghat. I flew, you know, with the beautiful rose petals, we honored the footsteps of Mahatma Gandhi, and I was honored, I think, to be the only American there at the private ceremony on October 2nd, and your President Modi, Prime Minister Modi, and other incredible dignitaries walked down a very solemn path to pay tribute to an incredible peacemaker. So it's not an award I put on my shelf as we approach October 2nd, Gandhi Yahindi, I have to say that properly. That I take this award so seriously and just hope to emulate my footsteps for peace as Gandhi did. He is in my heart and certainly in my family with grandchildren who are Indian. So whatever introductions to your leadership, the embassy of India, Afghanistan, of course, in New Delhi has been very supportive of Roots of Peace. But these connections are truly important, and not just talking at you. And here's my new book. The story is in, the foreword is by Her Majesty Queen Noor, and a lovely woman who never writes quotes for books is Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Cindy McCain. It's bipartisan from our country. It's very important right now. Dr. Jane Goodall and many, many others. So it's the story of Roots of Peace breaking ground. And I hope working with India, there's many more good chapters to be written, many more good books and stories to be told. But we need your help. We need your introductions. We need the support of the Indian government. And as I work with the Afghan government, the Pakistan government, the Chinese government, we respect the countries that we work in and the bridging of borders for peace.
Well, thank you. That's incredible, Heidi. Before I turn the mic back to, or the spotlight back to Mr. S. Venkat Narayan for closing, let me ask you a question, personal question. How much of your background of having been a journalist motivated you and helped you come this far with your projects?
Well, it's all about storytelling, isn't it? I had the honor and privilege of being a reporter and producer in what was then called the Soviet Union. And I lived in Alaska and actually started my own television news company shortly after the Exxon Valdez oil spill. 11 million gallons of oil hit Bly Reef, and there was no ability to tell that story once the journalists came up there. We didn't have the tools of social media to continue that story, but there was another incredible story that was breaking from Alaska, and that was 2 miles apart from Big Diomede to Little Diomede, and that was the melting of the ice curtain between U.S.-Soviet relations. And again, through a series of accidents, miracles, I ended up in the Supreme Soviet on the hour that Andrei Sakharov died. So I got the worldwide exclusive. Again, I had to, run it across town in a snow-laden Moscow, and sold it to CBS News with Dan Rather, and it was the lead story. So I believe in stories of bridging borders for peace. It is nothing different than what I had when I was 30 years old. Why am I not a journalist today? When I was 30 years old and I had a 1, 3, and 5-year-old child, my dear husband, I was diagnosed with malignant cervical cancer and told 4th stage that I wasn't going to live. And I think anybody who's diagnosed with cancer, it's that moment when you go under the knife and you just make a little prayer between you and your creator. Mine was, dear God, give me the gift of life and I will do something special with it. And so right after Diana died, it was no accident. I think it was a tapestry in my mind that cancer is a landmine. None of us know when we're going to step on it. And landmines are a cancer to the earth. And the solution is removal. I would like to say, after those 3 beautiful children, 8 years later, I had a terrible stomach ache, went back to the doctor, and with tears in his eyes, he told me that I was pregnant. So I have, with my dear husband, 4 beautiful children. And when I truly say, to whom much has been given, much is expected. So as a cancer survivor, I will take my footsteps as long as they're here on the planet and walk in the name of peace, and certainly in the name of Gandhi. I'm humbled and honored to even be included within his name in the same breath, but in partnership with the great country of India and the incredible reporters who are taking time for this call on a Saturday evening before a wine tasting party. I just want to say thank you so much. And we hope to start something. I'd love to propose something to you. The clinking of glasses, Roots of Peace began with a toast, a Minds to Vines global toast to peace, but maybe we can start something virtual that ripples around the world between now and the end of December 31st, when New Year's, and we clink our glasses to the new year. It's been a terribly challenging year, 2020, but if we could launch perhaps today a Minds to Vines global toast to peace. And in the medieval times, when people clink glasses, oftentimes they would poison the other person, right? But you had to have trust, you had to have honesty, and you toasted to good health. So I think, launching a Minds to Vines global toast to peace, looking at our neighbors in the eye, perhaps that effort could ripple around the world through excellent journalists and just look at the glass of water half full rather than half empty in this world today. It's very challenging. And as you can see, the sun did come up outside of my window. So it's a new day in San Francisco, and I wish you all the very, very best in my beloved India, and look forward to returning one day. And Dubai, on the phone, you Dubai and your wonderful, wonderful what you've accomplished there in Dubai is just exceptional. Why can't we do that in Afghanistan? I often wonder when I land there and have that quiet 2.5-hour flight from Dubai to Kabul. When I land, I think of Dubai and think, how can we not pull the world together? If Dubai has done this just in a few decades, what we potentially can do for Afghanistan and our world.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet. I guess Sushma said that she wants to quickly ask you a brief, short question before I get to Mr. Venkat Narayan. Sushma ji.
I can't hear.
Yes, no, Sushma is frozen. For some reason, maybe it's a technical glitch. It's a bandwidth issue. We'll come back to her question as soon as she's back. But let me, in the interest of time and to keep things going, ask Mr. Venkat Narayan to offer his remarks, ask a question, concluding remarks, and we'll still come back to Sushma when she's back with us. Venkat, unmute. Thank you. You're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Munish. Heidi, you're doing remarkable job, and I want to congratulate you on behalf of the people of India and South Asia. And you said there are 60 million landmines and unexploded devices in 60 countries. Have you worked out how much it will cost to clear the world of all these wretched landmines? And have you ever thought of approaching the UN and the likes of Bill Gates and other billionaires like Jeff Bezos and all that? These guys have more money than they know what to do with it. And do you think it will be possible for you to achieve your goal of eliminating all the landmines from the face of this earth? And if you do that, you're a potential candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize 5 years down the line. Would you like to?
Well, I just thank you so much for that question. And, we have to start with bite-sized pieces. So let me tell you how I began my new year 2020. I by choice, consciously with my husband, wanted to begin this new year with 2020 clear vision in the minefields of Vietnam. And in Quang Tri province, the former DMZ, more bombs were dropped there than World War I and II combined. And very tragically, since the war ended on April 30th, 1975, over 100,000 innocent Vietnamese footsteps have been maimed or killed by the explosive remnants of war left behind. So when I met a dear child, age 17, who picked up what he thought was a rock, and it was a cluster munition. It blew off his face and his right arm. And as I worked very hard to get a prosthesis for him, it took him 2 months to slowly die from his burns. And that's when I said to the experts, to the Mines Advisory Group, MAG, how much is this going to cost? I don't want to keep coming over here and seeing more and more children blow up and then come back to my, beautiful landscape of California. And people are like, Vietnam War ended. Don't worry about it. Just, come back and to the tennis courts and just relax, chill out. So when I went there, another incredible gentleman said, I will join you. And he served in the Vietnam War and went on to serve at the White House in both the Republican and Democratic. And that's Ambassador Kenneth Quinn. And he had just retired President Emeritus of the World Food Prize. So he joined me in the minefields of Quang Tri, and together on my birthday, again, I celebrate my birthdays because I'm here, right? I'm alive. I was diagnosed at 30 with cancer and I'm now 62. So it's a beautiful birthday gift to have placed my thumb along with his and detonated one of those bombs. And we put a cost on demining all of Quang Tri province and training the farmers to grow high-value spice, which is the most beautiful black pepper in the world, comes from Quang Tri province. So from mines to pepper vines. And that cost is $20 million. So I am leading a campaign to raise $20 million by the end of 2020. If there's a Jeff Bezos listening to this presentation, or Bill Gates, again, it's all about the money and the consciousness that people have to open their minds to. I firmly believe if we can show the former DMZ as a success, then it could ripple out throughout all of Vietnam, into Cambodia, into Laos, into all Southeast Asia, into Myanmar, and then clear the land for the crops and agriculture to blossom, giving jobs to these very poor, rural, forgotten people. And that can ripple across the world, but you got to start small. You got to be focused and let it ripple. We have planted rice in Cambodia, grapes in Afghanistan, orchards in Croatia, wheat in Iraq, and in Angola, actually demined the field where Princess Diana had once walked, and beautiful fresh baby strawberries are growing in these regions. So just again, as journalists, it all starts with a dream, right? Gandhi, didn't he have a dream to walk the salt sea? So people told him, I'm sure 100 times, you can't do this. The lovely story of Diane Disney Miller, Walt Disney's daughter, I'll leave you with this. She told me it took 330 no's to her father, Walt Disney, when he went around telling people that a mouse was going to change the world, Mickey Mouse. It took him 330 no's, and finally somebody said yes. And when she said to me, one day you will come out of your basement, where I'd worked for 5 years before going into the world with Mines to Vines, but one day you will come out of your basement, and like my father came out of his garage, and you will turn your minds to vines. So Diane Disney Miller has since passed, but her legacy in my heart carries on forever.
Well said. Very beautifully put. Sushma is back again, Venkat. So she just wanted to ask a very quick question. Sushma, go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to know which is your favorite role that you have played in your life as a daughter, mother, wife, grandmother, as a founder, CEO.
I think those first four are the most important. To be a loving wife of 44 years with my husband, a mother of 4 children, a grandmother of 3, and a good friend to many people around the world. Some people that people may never meet, who may never leave their rural farmland, but I love being a friend to people maybe I've never met before, and perhaps save their footsteps from stepping on landmines and walking freely on the face of this beautiful earth we share. And there's my granddaughter you can see in the background. I think she's just woken up. Amaya, there's a little peek over there. Well, this side right there. Anyway, but balancing baby and briefcase, it is a balance of baby and briefcase. And it's just, she's right on cue when I say that. I couldn't be a prouder grandmother.
That answers Sushma's question. Let me move to Venkat. Venkat, please.
Yeah. Heidi, you're doing great job. We wish you all the best. And I don't want to say anything more except looking forward to seeing you as a winner of the Nobel Prize. And when you get it, remember I said it here, and we will be delighted to host you at the FCC. All right. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for joining this webinar. And it's been wonderful having you with us, Heidi, and all our moral support to you. And we wish you all the best in your noble mission. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. And we'll call it, we'll conclude this.